Are you ready to scale and outsource your business?
Okay, let's go.
Welcome to the Outsourcing and Scaling Show. I'm your host, Nathan Hirsch, a show where we talk about everything Amazon, Shopify, e-commerce, and digital marketing. Let's get started. Welcome back to the Outsourcing and Scaling Show. My special guest today is Roland Frasier. Roland, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Nathan. How are you?
Doing great. Where are you joining us from? I know you're traveling.
I am in beautiful Austin, Texas, in my fun room that's got pianos and all kinds of cool stuff and a great river view in the background. So I'm here for board meetings for a couple of our companies.
That's awesome. For those of you that don't know, he's a co-founder and principal of 3 Current Inc. magazine fastest growing companies, and he's founded, scaled, or sold 24 different 7 to 9 figure businesses, ranging from consumer products to industrial machine manufacturing companies, with adjusted sales ranging from 3 million to over 300 million. You might know him from Digital Marketer, running the Traffic and Conversion Conference. We've been talking for a little while, and we want to go all into that. But first, let's take a gigantic step back. What were you like as a kid? Were you a rebel? Were you a straight A student? Did you know that you wanted to be an entrepreneur?
It's really funny. I was a straight A student, but I was also a straight F student because I've always had a challenge with authority. So I have had ups and downs in the academic world. So I would say rebel, but you know, I wasn't like crazy rebel, if that makes any sense at all.
So did you go to college? Did you graduate college?
Yeah, I did the whole thing. So I graduated high school. I went to college. I got a degree in accounting, and then I went to law school and got a degree in law. And then I went to advanced law school for an advanced law degree.
Awesome. And what was your first entrepreneurial endeavor after that? Did you go out and get a real job, or you go right into entrepreneurship?
No, I was in entrepreneurship from early age. So from about 16, doing different things. Then 18, I got my real estate license and started selling real estate. 19, I got my insurance license. 20, I got my securities license. So I was doing what they call private placements or syndications, raising money, putting together real estate deals, stuff like that, all through doing the academic stuff. And then I also played in a band during that time at night. So I played out in clubs from about age 15 to 42. I think I stopped when I was 42.
Awesome. And what was your first like real outside of college when you were like, all right, I'm going all in with this entrepreneurship, or was that right away?
Well, I was an entrepreneur the whole time. So that I've always just been passionate about business. My post-college stuff was I had a law degree, so I figured why not practice law, but I was already doing, I was buying and selling companies by that time. I started with buying and selling real estate and then moved into buying and selling companies when I was in my 20s. And so as I was in law school, I got out. I got offered 3 different jobs with the Securities and Exchange Commission divisions, and then decided that I wanted to go and practice for myself. So I opened a law firm, another entrepreneurial venture, and grew it to be one of the top firms in San Diego, California, which I had moved to from Virginia. And then basically just had so many deals going on that it seemed like it made a whole lot more sense, and I made a lot more money doing those things than practicing law. Plus, it's a whole lot more fun to do deals than it is to do law stuff.
I think a lot of people know you from Traffic and Conversion, from a digital marketer. So can you tell us that story? How did you get into that, and what is your role now with them? I know that's kind of changed over time.
Yeah, absolutely. I started, I've always been a big believer in, if you want to get to know somebody that you want to do business with, find the paid channel for access that they have already created, because you will go in as a customer, meaning that you will go in a position where they want to serve you. And so I went to this event called Traffic and Conversion Summit that these 2 guys, Ryan Dice and Perry Belcher, were holding for the first time. I think it was 2008. And it was just amazing. I thought it was fantastic. They have this mastermind called War Room that sounded interesting, but I didn't really know enough what it was. And I didn't join it. I went back the next year because I was regretting the whole time that I hadn't joined it for the following year. And with the intent of signing up right away. And I went up to the thing as they were signing, to the desk as they were setting up everything, and said, hey, I want to join that War Room Mastermind. And they said, you can't. It's like, wait a minute, what do you mean I can't? This is like sold out. What the heck's going on? They're like, oh no, we hadn't printed the forms yet. I was like, oh, okay, cool. So I joined that, and I was a member of that for about 3 years. We got to be friends, Ryan and Perry and Richard Linder, who was another partner in the business, got to be friends. And there was an opportunity to become a partner when they had a CEO who had a big chunk of equity options that ended up becoming available. So they said, is this something you'd be interested in being a part of? And I said, yes. So I ended up buying in. So I've had the journey with Digital Marketer and Traffic and Conversion Summit and War Room, which are 3 separate companies, but all involving those people. And for almost 10 years now. And I've been fan, customer, member, and partner. So that's kind of that evolution. And now we've exited 3 companies that group owns. We went through a partner buyout recently where we bought out Perry from the digital marketer companies, and Perry bought us out from the e-commerce companies. And so now it's Digital Marketer is Ryan Dice and me and Richard Linder. And we're in the process of Traffic and Conversion Summit was one of the companies that we exited part of. It's going into 10,000 people in San Diego in 2020. We're doing in June of 2020 Amsterdam for our first European expansion. We'll have about 3,500, 4,000 people. And then in October, we're doing Singapore for our Asia expansion. So we're really focused on growing those companies super, super fast and big.
I love it. You've obviously hired a lot of people. What is your hiring mentality when you're looking to add people to the team, to build a company, to eventually sell it? What are you looking for?
Well, one of the things that's really important to valuation and the ability to sell is that if you don't want to be in the company when you sell it, you need to have people who replace you. And if you are a personal brand, you can't really sell a personal brand. It's almost impossible. And if you can, you're not going to really get that much for it because it's you. So one of the biggest things for anybody who's an entrepreneur to do is to say, I'm not going to make the company me. I'm not going to name the company me. I'm not going to do anything except be the spokesperson for the company. And then I need to get operators and personnel in the company that can do all of the things that need to be done. Because if not, then I don't get to work on the company because I'm working in the company, and I don't get to sell the company because the company is still me. So You have to build, what I look at when I come in is who are the professionals that we can bring in to do all the things that need to be done, and create something that someone else can buy and be an owner of without being an operator of, because that's really that's where the money is. The money is in private equity firms, investment banks, companies that want to buy a company to add something more to it. They don't want a company that's just you. So you need workers in all of those companies. So we've had in the digital marketer group of companies, I think we've had as many as 265, 320, probably close to 325, 350 people at one point. Now, Digital Marketer has, I think we're at 62 people in Digital Marketer, so we're probably a total of maybe 75 or 80.
Do you have a bad hiring experience, maybe a hiring horror story that you could share with the audience?
I don't really have a hiring. I mean, we've had people that we hired that were crazy, but those crazy people ended up in lawsuits that settled that I can't talk about, so I won't talk about those. But I think that I've had experiences with people where usually everything is communications. So I think the big thing is that you want to be very careful as a person who's being hired or as a person who's hiring others to be really clear on what is the compensation, what's the expectation that's being created, are there promises that are being made? Because we've had people that relocated. If somebody's moving from a place to another, then that's an expensive, life uplifting kind of thing that you've got to have some responsibility as an employer to be careful, to not uproot people's families and have them move out and then say, 2 months later it didn't work out, or we changed directions, sorry, we don't need you anymore. But at the same time, you're not signing somebody on for lifetime employment. So the key, I think, is communications, to say, hey, look, here's the position, here's the job description. That's a really key one. You need to write a job description before you hire somebody so that they know and you know what they're supposed to do. You need ideally to have them come into a position that already has SOPs, standard operating procedures and processes. If you don't, then bring them in with the expectation that that will be part of their job to create those, so that if they move on or up in the company, that somebody else can come in and know what they were doing. And then on the comp package too. So we've had people who came in and there were conversations about all kinds of variable comp, so it's people come in, it's like, well, can I get a piece of the company? No, you can't. We don't do that. Can I have a variable comp where I get paid a certain performance, fee based on this? Probably. Let's talk about that. But then when you talk about it, you got to write it down, because as a recovering attorney, I can tell you that people hear different things without either of them being liars, cheaters, or thieves. You can have a conversation with somebody. You and I can have a conversation about a deal even, and say, hey, Nathan, I'd like for you to do this. And, here's the thing. And then you hear something and I think I said something differently. And that's what makes people fight with each other. So I think that written understanding of that is very, very important. And then the same thing with benefits and culture. I think that, for us, we lean heavily on the side of providing a lot of benefits because we want our people to feel really taken care of. We don't cut deals where somebody's, just going to be scraping by in the comp package. If we can't afford to pay them what they need to make things work for them, then we don't hire them, because you're just setting yourself up and them for failure. And then in terms of breakup, what happens? How do we determine what happens if things don't work out? That's ideally agreed on in advance as well. We have a standard severance package, or something like that, or we'll pay you for 2 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever the deal is. It's just getting all that stuff that people gloss over. And one of the biggest things for litigation is that you'll get into a business, and we had a partner in one of our portfolio companies that had conversations with somebody, and they thought they were entitled to X amount of money per certain transaction that happened. And then when things didn't work out and they left, they file a lawsuit for, however much money, saying, well, we generated all these things, and, so I'm entitled to all this money. That never happens if you got all that stuff in writing.
That makes a lot of sense. What about the culture? I know you're someone that has a lot of meetings. You have a lot of different companies. Are you building the same type of culture in every single company, or are you customizing the culture for that company?
Yeah, it's a really great question. And the answer is that there are similarities, but every company has its own culture. So culture can't be cookie cutter, copied and stamped out, I think, in different environments, because there are different people in a software company than there are in a real estate sales company that are different from people that are in an e-commerce company. And even from one company to another, the people will be different. So what we do is we get together, and my partner Ryan is excellent at this, but we get together and we create a set of things that we call the We Believes. So we say, what are the beliefs of the company? What are the things that we stand for? We have a thing called a character diamond that's basically, if the company was a human being, who would that company be? What's the hill that it's prepared to die on the North Star? What's the counterpoint to that? What's the one thing that we hold sacrosanct that will not bend on? And the other side is kind of what's our quirky thing that some people might not like, but it's kind of a defining thing for us. And then once we identify that, we say, okay, based on that, what do we believe? What do we believe should happen? And we go through a whole exercise of that in every company we do. And we actually create a video that's an indoctrination video for everyone who's in the company, and everyone who's in the company participating in the process is in the video. And then that video is shown to everybody that's a prospective hire, so that they can know what they're getting themselves into.
I love it. What about just running a meeting in general? Is there a certain format you have for running meetings with different teams?
I like to have an agenda outline. That's basically it. Is an agenda outline is what do we hope to accomplish at this meeting, and then what are the basic points that we're going to have to cover that are critical to moving forward to accomplish the thing we want to accomplish. And then as you get into the meeting, I tick those things off. And then I like to say, what are the action steps? Great. We finished issue number 1. What are the action steps? Who's supposed to do what within what period of time? And when are we going to follow up to see what's happening? And and then we use a software program called Monday. That is it's an OKR. So objectives and key results software. So we follow the John Doerr Measure What Matters, Monday, OKR, Andy Grove philosophy.
And guys, if you go to the FreeUp Facebook group, Outsourcing Masters, the FreeUp YouTube video, we actually have a video using Monday on how you can use and organize freelancers using that tool. What about figuring out how much to spend on hiring? I think a lot of entrepreneurs, as they scale, they struggle with this. Do you have a certain percentage of revenue, of profit that you're figuring out? How much should I actually invest into people for my business?
Yeah, it just depends, though. I mean, any general rule is subject to exception, but generally we like for payroll to be no more than 20% of sales. So if we're doing $1 million, then we should have about a $200,000 payroll. If we're doing $10 million, we should have about $2 million payroll. But if a company's in a growth phase, that's a different animal, or you're doing a dev thing with software or something like that, because you may have ramp up expenses. So once you're an operating company, I think it's fair to say, ideally, you're in that 20-25% range. Try not to go over that. As far as what individual people get paid, there's Glassdoor and places like that you can look and see what does this position pay in this particular location. And what you pay people should be what market rate is. So there shouldn't be a whole lot of guesswork to that. There is a range that you can look up that has statistically been determined, because thankfully other people have hired people like you're going to hire for similar positions in the past, and recorded what that is. So you've got a database of things you can look at.
So you have different business partners in these business. I know you talked about Ryan. What do you look for in a business partner?
Oh gosh, it's really it's just somebody that I like. I think one thing you learn as an attorney is that people don't sue people they like, even if those people make big mistakes. So number one, and you're going to spend a lot of time with a business partner. So if you have somebody that you have any doubts about, whether you like them or whether you can hang out with them outside of business, then it's probably not going to work. I think that's anytime I can look at throughout all of the things I saw as an attorney, or all the business relationships I've had that didn't work out in some way, it's just personality differences. And it doesn't mean those people are bad or wrong or anything. It's just, you like who you like. And so I think that's the first thing. You got to like them. The second thing is that you need to have complementary skills. If you're really good at operating a company, and you hire or you partner with somebody else who's really good at operating a company, you're probably going to butt heads because you have different operating styles. And so you need to really think about, the traction model of visionary integrator, right? That it's either rocket fuel or traction, where they say there's people who are visionaries who have the idea of where the company's going to go, and then there's integrator people who make that stuff happen. That's a really good pairing. But I think that, and Ryan, my partner, has a thing where he says there are inventors, builders, generals, and guides. And so a guide is somebody that's not really in the company managing, that's more of a CEO, outward facing kind of person. The general is the integrator operator, that's kind of like the COO who's running the show. But there are also builders who, operators aren't necessarily the people who can invent the things or come up with the ideas, and they're not necessarily the people who can actually build those, but they can operate them once they've been built. And I just had a talk with Clayton Mask, who founded Infusionsoft, which is now Keep. And, as they've gone through 100 million plus in sales, he really, I think, had a good point in that along the way, there's just different people that you're going to come into contact with. And so a partner can't be somebody who's not willing to change and grow and very dedicated to personal development along the way. Because when you found a company or get into a company and you're he said it's the rules of ones and threes, at 100,000, 300,000, a million, 3 million, 10 million, 30 million, 100 million, 300 million, you're usually each time you hit one of those new thresholds, the people that you've got aren't going to be qualified to get you to the next threshold, the people in management and senior management in particular. As a founder, you're the exception if you are on an aggressive personal growth path, because you do have the vision of the company, and ideally you step out of the things that you can partner with or hire or contract out that are not your skills, and you're developing new skills all the time, and you're really committed to honing the skills you've got. So your partners have to be in that mindset as well, because if they're not, and I've just seen 3 companies in the last year that went through partner buyouts because one partner was not committed to that, or one partner had a different vision or whatever. So you really want to be sure that you're aligned. You really want to be sure that you like each other. You want to be sure that you can have fun together. If your meetings are knockdown dragouts, that's probably, if you're arguing about the flowers, what flowers should we have on the desk, that's probably not a good partner.
I love it. Let's talk about sales and marketing. That's obviously been a big part of you scaling and growing. What's your mentality when it comes to those two, and how do you see things changing?
I am for both sales and marketing. So if specifically, I think that it's really important to have a sales function. It's something that is probably the weakest thing in our business, because we are really, really good marketers. And so if you say there's 20% that will never buy and 20% that will buy anything that you do, and then the other the other 60% is where the money's made, we're not good at getting the 60% without bringing in an outside kind of group, because we're marketers, we're not salespeople. So knowing that marketing to generate inbound for sales and sales to convert the leads that you've got is a really important combination, and very frequently those two don't get along. So the people that are marketing are sending all kinds of lead to sales and saying, why the heck aren't you converting more of the leads? And the salespeople are saying, well, the leads aren't converting, why aren't you sending better leads? And the salespeople go back and say, well, maybe if you followed up with them a few times or got back to them immediately, it would be better. And it's back and forth and back and forth. So I think the perspective of marketing and sales and what's happening in that is that they are coming more and more and more together. More salespeople are having to embrace marketing technology and become at least familiar with marketing. And more marketers are moving into sales as they realize that the best way for them to maximize their efforts or to optimize their efforts is to actually be able to convert that 60% that they're just kind of leaving on the table right now, and that they need to be familiar with and understand how sales works to better integrate the two. And ultimately, you're going to have smarketing, which is sales and marketing together, I think.
What about conversions? What are some of the biggest mistakes you see when entrepreneurs are trying to convert and just can't get it done?
Like converting people to sell on a website or something like that?
Yeah, it could be an e-commerce trying to convert clients. It could be an agency trying to land that client or get a client back. Well, what are some common mistakes you see?
It's that it's a couple of things. One, it would be that they're focused on the wrong thing, because conversion across the customer journey is much deeper than, are they going to click the buy button on my website right now? So right. I think it's a failure to address customer experience. If you look, I think it's about 89% of all Fortune 500 CEOs right now say the biggest thing that they're focused on going forward is customer experience. Customer experience is the number one thing that you can differentiate yourself from other people in a world of homogenous products, right? Or fungible products where people are going to China and buying, the same 67 versions of something and then putting them on a website and putting them for sale. That's just ultimately not going to be successful going forward. And the little tiny conversion hacks, I think that's probably what I would say is people are focused on conversion hacks, which are temporary and disappear the moment that everybody else knows the hack, then right. Those go away. And they're immersed in the hacks, so they ignore product market fit, product development, customer experience, and because they're after those new customers, they're also ignoring their existing customers who have been proved through study after study to be worth 5 times the value of a new customer. So I think the conversion thing is it's a focus on hacks and not on the bigger things that matter.
I love it. As we wrap up here, you've sold a lot of businesses. You've been a part of mergers. What advice do you have for entrepreneurs that are looking to sell their business?
Well, there are a whole lot of factors. I'd say that's a big question. I would say that the things to think about are you have three different ways that businesses typically get sold. If it's a small business that's just dependent on you, it usually sells for what you've taken out of the business in the last 12 months. It's called seller distributable earnings or seller distributable cash, SDE or SDC, which means if you have a business that's doing $1 million a year and you're making $100,000 a year out of it that you take out of the company, you're going to get paid $100,000 for it. The next way that companies get sold is if they're a little bit bigger, if they have that bench depth so that they're not a personal brand and they're not totally dependent on you. You've got no one customer that's more than 20% of your customers. You've got 20% year-over-year compound annual growth rate. You've got standard operating procedures and processes, those kinds of things. You've got some sort of ideally defensible IP, intellectual property, some sort of competitive advantage. You've got a good share of your market that's trending up. If all of those things are in play, then typically you're going to sell for a multiple of your earnings. And so let's say that, generally then it's called EBITDA, which is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. So in that same business that was doing $1 million that had a profit of 100 before that you only sold for 100, this one might sell for a multiple of 7 times that 100 profit. So now you got 700. And then the other kind of business is a recurring revenue business. And a recurring revenue business typically sells for a multiple of sales. So in that same business, and this would be a software as a service is a perfect model, but any other subscription kind of thing with monthly recurring revenue or annual recurring revenue, where the revenue comes in every month, you've got a reasonably low churn, ideally under 5%, you've got a 20% compound annual growth rate, et cetera, then you're probably looking at a multiple of sales. And so that same multiple of, say, 7 that we talked about on the 100K now goes towards the million, and you're going to sell that company for 7 million. So you need to say, do I want to be a small company where I'll only be able to sell it for whatever I've taken out in the last 12 months? Do I want to build it a little bit, have some employees, some infrastructure, and spend some time developing the skeleton of the company, and then sell things kind of one at a time, in which case I'll probably get a multiple of that? Or do I want to create a recurring revenue company where I'm likely to get a significantly bigger bump? I'd say that's the first place that you need to think about who do you want to be and how do you want to position yourself for sale. And then all the things that I kind of mentioned casually, really quickly in passing, those are all things you have to focus on when you're, when you're thinking about preparing a company for sale.
Roland, this has been great. Where can people find out more about you, and what are you most excited about for the rest of the year?
Sure. I have a podcast also called Business Lunch. So that's a good place to listen to a lot of stuff for me, where I talk just me, and also talk interviewing people like you. And I'm on all the socials at /Roland Frasier. I have a website, rolandfrasier.com, digitalmarketer.com, our big event, traffic and conversion summit.com. Those are all places to connect.
Awesome, man. Thanks again. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching. Did you enjoy this content? If so, click like, leave us a comment, and subscribe.